The air was thick with tension, as if something unspoken hovered in the very atmosphere. Jason Monroe, a seemingly ordinary man living a quiet life on Earth, had no idea that today would be the day everything would change. It began like any other. His morning coffee, the mundane hum of traffic outside his apartment window, the routine walk to work. But that was before he felt it. A strange vibration beneath his feet. It wasn't an earthquake. It was something else, something he couldn't explain. And before he could react, the world around him went black. When Jason came to, he wasn't in his office building, his apartment, or anywhere familiar. He lay on cold, smooth ground beneath an unfamiliar sky, one that was both darker and somehow more alive than anything he'd ever seen. There was no noise, no wind, just an unsettling silence that made his pulse race. Suddenly a flash of light, bright, blinding and unnatural, seared across his vision, forcing him to shield his eyes. When it faded, 3 figures stood before him. They weren't human, not in the slightest. Tall, lithe, and impossibly graceful, the beings were draped in shimmering alien robes that seemed to ripple with colors Jason had no words for. Their eyes, large, liquid, and black as space itself, seemed to stare into him, as if they could see every thought, every hidden fear. One of the figures spoke, but it wasn't a voice Jason could hear with his ears. It was inside his mind, clear and commanding. "Jason Monroe, you have touched our daughters." The words hit him like a physical blow. "What?" he gasped, trying to push himself up, but his limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. The confusion in his voice was palpable. "You have touched them," the voice repeated, colder this time, as if its patience was waning. "According to galactic law, you are now their husband." Jason's heart skipped a beat. I don't understand what you're talking about. I've never..." His words faltered as the sheer absurdity of what they were saying took hold. "You have touched our daughters," the figure said again. This time the tone was final, absolute, as if there was no room for debate. "And so, by the laws of the galaxy, you are now bound to them. You will become their husband. There is no escape." Jason struggled to make sense of it all. This is crazy. I don't know who you are. I don't know what this law is, but I haven't touched anyone." The words came out faster now, panic rising in his chest. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of a world that was suddenly alien in every sense of the word. The tallest figure, who appeared to be the leader, moved closer to him, its black eyes never leaving his face. Jason's heart pounded in his chest as the being reached out, placing a cool, slender hand on his forehead. The touch was electric, sending a strange ripple through his entire body. In that moment, visions flashed in his mind, images of far-off worlds, strange rituals, and a law so ancient that it made human history seem like a mere whisper. A voice, now more distinct, echoed inside his mind. "You have touched them. You are now bound by our law, and this is no longer a matter of choice." Jason gasped as the last of the visions faded. He was shaken, disoriented, but one thing was crystal clear now. He was not going to wake up from this nightmare. I don't know what this law is. I don't know your daughters. I don't even know who you are." Jason tried to stand, but his legs wobbled and he sank back down to the cold ground. "Please, just let me go home. I don't belong here. This isn't real." The leader's expression shifted, as if its face was capable of showing something akin to pity. "You are not going home. You have been chosen, and you will obey the galactic law. There is no escape for you now." Jason's mind raced even faster. He tried to fight back, to understand how any of this could make sense. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized this wasn't a joke, this wasn't some elaborate trick. The beings before him were not just figments of imagination or nightmares. They were real. And whatever this galactic law was, It had taken him, an average man, and thrust him into the center of something beyond comprehension. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating, as Jason looked up at the beings. He had no idea how to react, what to say, or even what to do. He was out of his depth, a pawn in a game whose rules he didn't understand. Then the second figure spoke, its voice inside his mind like a cold wind. "You are now bound to them. There is no going back. The laws of the galaxy are absolute. You will find no refuge, no escape." Jason's heart sank. His mind scrambled for something, anything, that could make sense of this situation. He had no experience with aliens. He had no idea how their laws worked or why this was happening to him, but one thing was certain now: escape wasn't an option. "You can't do this," Jason said, his voice trembling. "I'm just a normal guy. I don't belong in some alien marriage, whatever this is." The words came out in a desperate rush, but the more he spoke, the more he realized how futile it all was. The beings before him weren't concerned with his confusion, his fear, or his protests. They were only concerned with one thing: the law. The leader of the three stepped closer, its figure towering over him. "You will come with us," it said. And suddenly, a force far stronger than anything Jason could have imagined gripped his body, lifting him off the ground and pulling him forward. He could barely fight it, his body being moved against his will, as if he were nothing more than a rag doll. As he floated helplessly through the air, he saw the world around him begin to shift. Alien structures, vast and shimmering, towering high, into an impossibly dark sky. Strange ships hovered nearby, their designs unlike anything Jason had ever seen on Earth. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. He was no longer on Earth. He was somewhere else, somewhere beyond the realm of human understanding. And then a thought flickered in his mind. What if this wasn't just a mistake? What if it was something more, something far bigger than he could comprehend? The leader's voice cut through his thoughts, clear and cold. "You are now our property. The laws of the galaxy are inescapable. And soon you will realize that you are part of something much greater than you could ever have imagined." Jason's stomach churned with dread. He had no idea what lay ahead, no idea how to free himself from the grip of these alien beings. But one thing was certain. His life, his future, was no longer in his hands. The galaxy had claimed him, and there was no escape. Jason Monroe had never believed in aliens. Sure, he'd seen the movies, watched the documentaries, and heard the stories. Who hadn't? But like most people, he brushed it off as fiction, an elaborate fantasy. That was, of course, until he found himself standing in the middle of an alien city, no longer able to deny the reality of it all. The creatures that had abducted him, the glowing structures surrounding him, and the overwhelming sense that he was no longer on Earth. It was all too real, and the truth hit him like a tidal wave. Escape wasn't just impossible, it was a dream he couldn't afford. The ship carrying him was unlike anything Jason had ever seen. It was sleek, smooth, and metallic, with curves that seemed to defy any human design. It hummed softly as it cut through the vastness of space, and Jason couldn't help but feel small, as if he were a speck of dust drifting through an incomprehensible universe. He'd tried to protest, tried to reason with the beings who had captured him, but their cold stares and unyielding grip had left him powerless. Every word he spoke seemed to vanish into the silence, as if they didn't even hear him. Soon they landed. The ship gently descended onto a platform made of a material Jason couldn't even begin to identify. It was smooth and translucent, glowing faintly under the harsh lights of the city. The entire city, if that's what it could be called, was a labyrinth of towering structures that seemed to reach into the sky itself, each one more alien than the last. There were no sounds of cars or machines, just the quiet hum of technology, the rhythmic pulse of something far beyond anything Jason had ever encountered. As the doors of the ship opened, Jason was pulled out by the same unseen force that had guided him aboard. His feet were now on solid ground, though he felt anything but grounded. The air around him was dense, heavy with the scent of something unfamiliar. He tried to steady himself, but the sense of disorientation was overwhelming. The beings who had taken him, still silent, still unyielding, led him forward, their movements smooth and deliberate. Jason had no choice but to follow. They passed through an archway of shimmering light, entering a massive chamber. The walls were lined with what appeared to be holographic displays, projecting data that Jason couldn't even begin to interpret. At the center of the room stood a figure, tall and regal, its posture commanding. This new being was different from the others. It wore a crown-like object on its head, its robes shimmering with gold and silver, radiating an aura of authority. The leader of the group, the one who had first spoken to Jason, stopped before the figure. "We have brought him," it said, its voice reverberating in Jason's mind. The crowned figure turned its gaze toward him. Its eyes were like pools of liquid darkness, deep and unfathomable, as if it could peer into his very soul. For a moment, Jason felt an overwhelming sense of dread, the weight of its gaze pressing down on him. And then, without speaking, the figure waved its hand. The room around him seemed to warp, and suddenly Jason found himself kneeling before this being forced by an invisible force. "You are in violation of galactic law." The being spoke at last, its voice resonating through Jason's bones. It was neither kind nor angry, but simply matter of fact. "You have touched our daughters. You are now bound to them as their husband." Jason's heart raced. "I told you I don't know what you're talking about. I've never touched anyone, not in the way you mean." The figure's expression remained unchanged. "The law is clear. It matters not whether you intended it or not. The law has deemed you the chosen one." Jason blinked in confusion. "But what is this law? Why me?" The being leaned forward, its eyes narrowing as if it were studying him. "The galactic law governs the relationships between all races in the galaxy. It ensures balance, peace, and order. Your actions, though insignificant to you, have disrupted that balance. The law was put in place eons ago to ensure the protection and sanctity of those who are marked. You are now marked." Jason's stomach twisted with a mix of anger and fear. "I don't belong here. I don't want this. I don't want to be anyone's husband, especially not some alien princess or whatever." "Silence!" The figure's voice was sharp, cutting through Jason's protest like a blade. "Your words are meaningless. You will comply. You will accept the law, or you will face the consequences of defying it. The consequences are not something you want to experience." Jason's mind was reeling. He wanted to scream, to fight back, but the weight of their words, the cold authority of this alien race, it was suffocating. What could he do? What did he even have left? The figure continued, its voice now softer, almost pitying. "You do not understand yet, but you will. Your refusal will only make it more difficult. Accept the law. Embrace your new role. There is no way back. You belong to them now, and they to you." Jason's heart pounded in his chest as the words settled into him. He wasn't just being forced into a marriage. This was something far more sinister. The more he thought about it, the more questions arose. If this was really the law of the galaxy, how many others had been through this? How long had this system been in place? And most importantly, how could he break free? The figure stepped aside, gesturing for the others to move forward. One of the alien beings placed a cold, metallic device on Jason's wrist. He flinched at the touch, but it was already too late. The device hummed to life, its surface glowing, a dull green. The air around him crackled with energy, and suddenly Jason felt a rush of sensations flood his mind. It wasn't pain, but something far worse. An overwhelming sense of being trapped, of being bound to something he couldn't escape. It was as if his entire body had been marked, and now there was no going back. The leader turned to face him, its voice a whisper now. "You have been branded. There is no turning back. You belong to them and they to you." Jason's pulse quickened, panic rising within him. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. I don't accept this. I won't." The figure only looked at him with cold, dispassionate eyes. "Your defiance is noted, but it is meaningless. The law is absolute." Jason was led from the chamber, his thoughts spinning. Every step felt like it took him further from the life he had known, and closer to a fate he couldn't understand, much less accept. The world around him seemed to blur, his mind struggling to grasp the enormity of what had just occurred. He had been marked, he had been chosen, and there was nothing he could do about it. They led him down a narrow hallway, past other beings, who watched him with a mixture of curiosity and indifference. Jason's mind was racing, but one thought stood out. How had he become part of this galactic nightmare? He wanted to fight, to find a way out, but every fiber of his being screamed that it was futile. There were no escape routes, no safe zones, no allies to turn to. He was alone, lost in a world that wasn't his own, and as much as he wanted to scream to break free, he knew one thing: there was no going back. And so, they continued. Through halls of strange materials, past doors that opened with no physical means, and into a room that would become his new home, his prison, his new reality. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss, and Jason was left alone in a sterile, cold room. He sank to his knees, his mind still reeling. How had his life come to this? How had he gone from a normal man, living an ordinary life, to being forced into this absurd, impossible situation? The walls around him seemed to close in as he sat there, the weight of the situation crashing down on him. There was no escaping this. He was now part of something bigger than himself, part of a law that he didn't understand, bound by rules. He couldn't change. The door opened again, and one of the alien beings entered, this time with a different face, softer, more feminine, but just as unreadable as the others. "You will learn," she said, her voice almost kind. "But in time. For now, rest. You have much to accept." Jason didn't respond. He didn't know what to say. Instead, he lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind still spinning. There was no escape. There was only the law. And for the first time in his life, Jason realized that he had no control over his own fate. Jason had never felt more powerless in his entire life. As the days passed, he became a mere shadow of his former self, tired, confused, and deeply unsettled. The room that had once felt like a safe haven was now suffocating. His mind was constantly racing, grasping at anything to hold on to. But there was no escape from the situation. The more he learned about this alien society, the more absurd it seemed. The more he understood the galactic law, the more it felt like a nightmare that refused to let him wake up. In the days following his capture, Jason was forced to undergo various procedures, some mundane, others deeply invasive, that further cemented his role in this strange new world. His wristband, the device that had marked him, was always with him, an ever-present reminder of his bond to the alien women. His body felt strange, as though he had been transformed into something else, something unrecognizable. He could feel the effects of the law shifting his reality, bending it to the will of the mysterious beings who had captured him. He was no longer just a human man. He was a pawn in an alien game that had no rules, no compassion, and no mercy. But the worst part of it all the unknown. He had no idea what was to come. What did being their husband even mean? Was he supposed to just accept it, fall in line and play his part? Or was there something more sinister at play? Something he couldn't yet comprehend? Jason's thoughts swirled as he sat in his sterile room, trying to block out the incessant hum of the machinery in the walls. He had been given food, strange, glowing nourishment that didn't taste like anything he had ever had on Earth, but the food did little to ease his mind. What would happen to him? What would happen to his life? Would he ever see Earth again? Would he ever be free? The door to his room opened with a soft hiss, and one of the alien women entered. She was tall, slender, and with striking features. Her skin shimmered with a silvery tint, and her eyes were deep pools of blue, unlike anything Jason had ever seen. Her hair was long and braided, cascading down her back in delicate waves. But it wasn't her beauty that caught Jason's attention. It was the calm, almost serene expression she wore. There was something about her that didn't seem to match the harshness of the situation. "Jason Monroe," she said, her voice soft, but clear. "It is time." Jason's heart skipped a beat, his thoughts a jumbled mess. "Time for what?" he asked, his voice hoarse from the countless days of silence and isolation. The woman's gaze softened slightly, though she didn't smile. "Time for you to meet them." "Who?" Jason asked, the words almost sticking in his throat. "Who are they?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped forward, motioning for him to follow. Jason hesitated for a moment, then stood, his legs feeling weak beneath him. He had no choice but to follow. As he stepped into the corridor, the cold, alien walls stretched before him like a maze with no end in sight. His breath was shallow, his mind still racing with questions, but he couldn't stop himself from walking forward. The woman led him through a series of hallways, each more alien than the last. There were rooms on either side, but all were sealed shut. There was no sign of other inhabitants, no sound, no movement. It was as if the entire place was abandoned, empty, save for the two of them. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a set of double doors, large and imposing. The woman stepped forward, placing her hand on the door. It opened slowly, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Inside the chamber stood 3 women, all of whom were unmistakably alien in nature. They were all tall, regal, and elegant, each one radiating a sense of power and authority. Their skin was smooth and golden, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the room. Each woman wore a gown of flowing fabric that shimmered like liquid light, and their presence was overwhelming, as though they commanded the very space around them. Jason's breath caught in his throat. These were the daughters of the law, the ones who had been chosen, the ones he had been bound to by fate. One of the women stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she took in Jason's form. She was the youngest of the 3, her features delicate and yet fierce, as though she had been forged for a purpose greater than herself. She approached him without a word, her gaze fixed on him as if assessing his every move. The second woman, who stood a little taller, regarded Jason with a more serene expression. Her eyes were kind, almost maternal, as if she understood his confusion, his fear. She tilted her head slightly, her gaze flicking between him and the others. She didn't speak, but there was something in her eyes that made Jason feel as though she could read him, understand him on a level that went beyond language. The third woman, the eldest, stood back and observed the interaction, her presence commanding. She was older, her features sharp and defined, her expression unreadable. Her eyes seemed to pierce into Jason's very soul, and for a moment he felt as if she could see everything he had ever done, everything he was. Her silence was deafening, and he wondered if she would ever speak, if she would ever reveal the purpose behind this strange bond. The youngest woman spoke first, her voice sharp but controlled. You are the one who has touched us. You are the one who will become our husband. Jason shook his head, his confusion growing. I didn't touch anyone. His voice cracked with frustration. I don't even know what's going on here. This is insane. The eldest woman stepped forward then, her gaze never leaving him. It matters not, she said, her voice cold and detached. What matters is that the law has been set. You are ours now. There is no escaping it. There is no denying it. You will comply, or you will suffer the consequences. Jason's stomach churned as the weight of her words settled in. I can't do this. The second woman, the kindest of the three, stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was warm, soothing even, but it didn't ease the fear that clawed at his chest. You don't have to understand it now, she said softly. You will in time. For now, just accept what is. Jason looked into her eyes, searching for any trace of sympathy, any flicker of humanity. But there was nothing. She was just as alien as the rest of them. Please, Jason begged, his voice breaking. I don't belong here. I don't know what this is, but I can't. The youngest woman interrupted him, her voice sharp and commanding. There is no place for weakness here. You will adapt, you will learn, and you will obey the law. Jason felt his breath catch in his throat. This was it. He had no choice. He was trapped. The realization settled in with a sickening finality. His life, as he knew it, was over. There was no going back. The eldest woman nodded, signaling to the others. You will spend time with us. Learn what is expected of you. You will not be permitted to leave until you understand your role. Your future is intertwined with ours now. Jason didn't respond. What could he say? The truth was undeniable. He was now bound to these women, to this alien race, and there was no escape. The youngest woman turned to the others. Let's prepare him. It's time for him to understand his new life. Jason was led away again, but this time the fear inside him was stronger than before. What awaited him? What had he signed up for without even knowing it? As the doors closed behind him, he realized with a sinking feeling that the truth was far darker than he had imagined. There was no way out, and as long as the law was in place, he was theirs. Jason's mind was on the brink of collapse, but he had to remain focused. His body was drained, his spirit broken, but he couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now, not when he was so close to understanding what the hell was happening. He had to hold on to the last shreds of his sanity, if not for himself, then for his future. He had spent the last few days in the sterile, cold chambers of the alien facility, learning, though perhaps learning wasn't the right word. More like enduring. The women had given him no choice but to comply. Their laws were not negotiable. Resistance had only brought him pain, physical, emotional, and mental. They weren't violent, not in the way humans understood violence, but there was a coldness to them that chilled him to the bone. Every interaction felt scripted, calculated. There was no warmth, no kindness. They made it clear that this was their way, and if he was going to survive here, he had no choice but to accept it. Jason Monroe, the eldest woman's voice echoed in the sterile room. The sound was so sharp, so chilling, it made his skin crawl. You have been chosen. You must understand what that means. Jason's head snapped up. He had been expecting something, some kind of explanation, though he wasn't sure he was prepared for the truth, whatever it might be. I've been trying to understand, he said, his voice trembling. But none of this makes any sense. You keep saying I've been chosen, but for what? Why me? Why humans? The eldest woman's gaze pierced him. Because you have been marked, Jason Monroe. You touched us, and that alone bound you to our laws. I didn't touch you on purpose, he said, clenching his fists. I don't even remember what happened. I don't even know what you want from me. The youngest woman, the one who had been the most hostile toward him, stepped forward with a chilling smile on her face. "It does not matter if you remember, human. What matters is that the law has already been set. You will not be able to undo it. You will not be able to escape it." Jason's heart raced. The words felt like a dagger, stabbing deep into his chest. He wanted to shout, to scream, but the reality was becoming undeniable. He had no choice. He was trapped in a game where the rules were not his own. He was just a player on a board he didn't understand. The middle woman, the one who had shown him some semblance of kindness, stepped forward then, as if sensing his growing panic. "Jason, the truth you seek is one of great weight," she said softly. "The law binds us together in ways you cannot yet comprehend. But in time you will." "What truth?" Jason whispered, his throat dry, his eyes wide. "What is this? What are you doing to me?" The woman's gaze softened slightly, though it did little to calm him. "You were chosen because you are the key. The bond between us is not just physical. It goes deeper, beyond what you can see or feel. It connects us in a way that transcends anything you know. And the law of our people, requires you to fulfill your role as our husband." Jason's stomach turned. The word husband felt like acid on his tongue, sour and revolting. "But I don't know anything about you. I don't know anything about your laws. I'm not a part of this. I'm just a human." The eldest woman's eyes glimmered with a dangerous kind of intensity. "And that is where you are wrong, Jason Monroe. You have always been a part of this. Your existence was predestined. You are not a victim. You are the catalyst for the change that will come." Jason could feel his knees weaken beneath him. "What do you mean? What change? What is this about?" The second woman, the one who had been quieter but more empathetic, looked at him with sadness in her eyes. "You are a human, Jason. That much is true, but you are more than just a human. Your presence here is not a mistake. Your species is the key to the next phase of our evolution. The law was written eons ago, long before you were born. It is a law of balance, of connection, and you, Jason Monroe, have been brought here to fulfill that role." Jason's head spun. "What the hell are you talking about?" The eldest woman stepped closer, her presence looming over him like an immovable force. "The time has come for our species to evolve, to ascend to the next stage of our existence. The bond between us, the bond you now share with us, is the key to our survival. Without it, we would fade into extinction. You are the one who can ensure that we survive." Jason's breath hitched. "You're telling me that my touch, whatever that means, somehow determines whether or not you survive?" "Yes," the eldest woman said, her voice unwavering. "In the eyes of our people, the law is sacred. It must be fulfilled. And you, human, are now the focal point of our survival. There is no turning back from this. There is only one path forward." Jason took a step back, his mind a whirlwind of confusion. "I'm not a savior. I'm not some... I don't know what you think I am, but I don't belong here. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not your husband, and I sure as hell don't want to be." The youngest woman's cold smile returned, but this time there was something more, menacing in her eyes. "It doesn't matter what you want. What matters is what the law demands. You will comply. You will be ours, whether you accept it or not. The law binds you to us." Jason felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He was being swallowed whole by something he couldn't control. This wasn't just a trap. It was something much deeper, much older and far more dangerous. Suddenly, there was a sharp electric hum from above. Jason's eyes snapped upward, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of something strange in the ceiling. A shimmering, iridescent light. It pulsed, shifting in ways that didn't make sense. "What is that?" he demanded, his fear rising. The middle woman, the kindest of the three, seemed to recognize his panic. "It is the bond," she said softly. "It is awakening." Before, Jason could respond. A sudden burst of energy shot from the light above. It coursed through the air, striking him with such force that it knocked him off his feet. The world around him blurred, spinning wildly. His vision darkened, and his mind screamed, but the pain was unbearable. As he struggled to remain conscious, he caught a glimpse of the women. They were watching him, calm, stoic, unfeeling, until the light reached its peak, and everything went silent. Jason gasped for air as the energy left his body, his head spinning. His muscles were sore, and his heart hammered in his chest. But in the midst of the overwhelming pain, something else settled in his mind. A realization. The law was more than just a set of rules. It was a force, a power beyond comprehension. And he, Jason Monroe, was now a part of it. The fourth part has brought the revelation of the true purpose of Jason's presence among the aliens, and with it, a deeper dive into the complexity of their law. The pain and confusion he feels grow more intense as he begins to understand the monumental role he now plays, setting the stage for the final resolution to come. Jason's body felt like it was made of stone. The remnants of the energy pulse still clung to him, vibrating through his muscles and nerves, and for a moment he thought he might collapse. The sterile room around him blurred in his vision, and the harsh lights above seemed to pulse in rhythm with his racing heart. But through the dizziness, there was something clearer than ever before. The law. The weight of it, the impossible nature of it, hung over him like a dark cloud. He pushed himself to his feet, his legs shaking beneath him, and staggered forward. His eyes still glued to the three women who stood in front of him. They hadn't moved, they hadn't flinched. But there was a change in their expressions, a subtle shift, as if something had clicked into place. "You were warned," the eldest woman said, her voice cold but oddly reverent. "The bond cannot be undone." Jason's mouth felt dry as he tried to speak. "What is happening to me? What do you mean the bond cannot be undone?" His voice cracked, the confusion still overwhelming him. "You touched us," the middle woman said, her voice softer but no less intense. "That was the beginning of the bond. What you felt earlier, the energy pulse, that was the first awakening. The law is ancient, Jason. It was written by those who came before us, and it is binding. You have been chosen to fulfill a role you cannot escape." Jason felt the ground beneath him sway. The gravity of her words hit him harder than the pulse of energy. "But I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't choose this. I'm just a regular guy. I don't belong here. I'm not a part of this whatever it is you're talking about." The youngest woman, who had been silent for most of their interactions, finally spoke. Her voice was harsh, her eyes narrowing as if she were growing impatient. "It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you want. You are now bound by the law. Your species, humanity, was chosen to help us evolve, to ensure our survival. This bond is a key part of that process." Jason's heart was hammering. "But why? Why me? Why humans?" The eldest woman stepped closer, her eyes locked onto his with a calmness that made Jason's stomach churn. "Your kind is unique, Jason Monroe. You do not yet understand the significance of your species, but that will come in time. The law is not just a law of obligation. It is a law of survival. You are a link to that survival. Without your participation, our people will wither and die." Jason clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "I don't care about your survival. I didn't sign up for this, and I don't want to be a part of whatever this is. This isn't me. I'm not the one who was meant to save you, to be a husband to you. There is no escaping this, Jason," the eldest woman continued, unshaken by his outburst. "You do not have a choice. This bond was destined long before you ever touched us. You are now part of something far greater than yourself. The law has decreed it." Jason's chest tightened, and he felt a panic rising within him. The reality was sinking in. He wasn't going to wake up from this. He wasn't going to find his way out. The strange, pulsing light that had filled the room was proof of that. This was happening. It wasn't a nightmare. It wasn't a mistake. He had crossed some invisible threshold, and there was no turning back. But I didn't even know who you were. I don't even know what you want from me. How can I just accept this? His voice cracked, the words coming out almost like a plea. The middle woman took a step forward, her expression softening for the first time. The law does not ask for your acceptance, Jason. It is a truth that transcends all understanding. You were chosen not by us, but by the forces that govern the universe. We cannot change that, and neither can you. Jason's mind was reeling. He was trapped in a reality that made no sense. The idea of being chosen felt like a cruel joke. He was supposed to be someone's husband. He was supposed to save them. How had things spiraled out of control so quickly? Please, he whispered, his voice breaking. I need to know what this means. What does the law require of me? What happens now? The eldest woman nodded slightly, almost as if she had been waiting for him to ask that question. The first part of the bond has been completed. Now the second stage begins. You will fulfill the role of our husband in every sense. The bond will deepen, and with it, you will come to understand what it means to be connected to us. You will share our essence, and in return, we will share ours with you. Jason felt like he was suffocating. His mind couldn't wrap around the words, couldn't make sense of what they were saying. But their words rang with a finality he couldn't ignore. There was no escape. Why? Jason whispered again, this time more desperately. Why are you doing this? Why can't you just let me go? I just want to go home. I never wanted any of this. The youngest woman stepped forward, her eyes cold. You will understand in time, human. But there is no going back. The bond has been made, and we are now connected in ways you cannot yet comprehend. This is your destiny, and you will fulfill it, whether you accept it or not. Jason's thoughts raced, but his body felt frozen. He didn't know how long he stood there in silence, feeling the weight of their words, the crushing realization that there was no way out. The walls were closing in around him, and the strange, inexplicable energy coursing through his veins made him feel like he was losing control of his own body. This is madness, he muttered, shaking his head. This isn't real. It can't be. The eldest woman's voice was calm, almost soothing. It is very real, Jason, and in time you will see that this is not madness. This is evolution. The bond is part of something far bigger than anything you have experienced before. It is a bridge to the future of our species. Jason opened his mouth to argue, but the words didn't come. He didn't know how to fight this. How could he fight something he didn't understand? How could he fight the law, something that was beyond his control? As if sensing his defeat, the eldest woman placed a hand on his arm, the touch gentle but firm. You will not be alone in this. We will guide you. We will help you understand what is required of you. But you must trust in the law. There is no other way. The words rang in Jason's ears, but they offered no comfort. They only deepened his sense of helplessness. He was a pawn in a game that was centuries old, a game that had nothing to do with him but had claimed him nonetheless, and there was no escape. Jason's heart felt like it was about to explode. The weight of everything that had happened, the law, the bond, the alien women, the strange forces that had shaped his life in ways he couldn't understand, was closing in around him. He could no longer tell where the line between fear and acceptance began to blur. He sat on the edge of a stone-like bench in the sterile room, staring at his hands, trembling slightly. The weight of the ring that had appeared on his finger was almost unbearable. It wasn't just a symbol. It was a reminder of everything that had happened, of everything he couldn't escape. The eldest woman entered the room first, her steps light but purposeful. Her presence seemed to command the space, filling it with an air of inevitability. The middle woman and the youngest followed behind her, their eyes soft but no less intense. There was no anger in their gaze, no malice, only the calm certainty of those who knew the truth of their world, a truth Jason was still struggling to understand. "You have learned much," the eldest woman said, her voice low and controlled. "But the final part of your journey is still ahead of you. There is one last choice you must make, Jason, one final decision." Jason didn't look up immediately, his eyes focused on the ring. It felt heavier than it should have. It was as if the universe itself was waiting for him to do something. But what could he do? He had no choice. He couldn't undo what had already been done. He couldn't go back. What choice? Jason's voice was hoarse, as if the words had been trapped in his throat for too long. He finally raised his eyes to meet theirs. "What's left for me? I've done everything you've asked. I've accepted it all. I've done things I can't explain. So what more do you want from me?" The eldest woman stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "It's not about what we want, Jason. It's about what you choose to become. The bond has been made. You are part of us now, as we are part of you. But you still have one final step. The choice to become more than just a participant in the law. You can embrace your new role or you can reject it." Jason's heart stuttered in his chest. "What do you mean, embrace it or reject it? I've already been dragged into this. There's no way out. You're saying I have a choice now?" "Yes," she replied, her voice steady. "But the choice is not as simple as you might think. You have the power to choose how to live with the consequences of the bond. You can accept it as it is, as a part of the law, and join us fully. Or you can choose to fight it, to resist it. But understand this, resistance is not without consequence." The words echoed in Jason's mind, and he looked down at the ring again. He didn't want to accept it, didn't want to believe that this was his fate. He had never asked for any of this. He was just an ordinary man. And yet he had been pulled into this cosmic web of forces he couldn't begin to comprehend. The youngest woman spoke now, her voice softer, almost sympathetic. "You have the power to reshape your destiny, Jason. The bond you share with us is not one of subjugation. It is a bond of connection. It's not just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. It will change you. But it can also be your strength." Jason swallowed hard. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can live this life. I don't know if I can be what you want me to be." The middle woman moved closer, her gaze intense. "It's not about what we want. It's about understanding who you are, what you have become. The law has chosen you, Jason. But in the end, it is your choice whether you accept that role and step into the future, or if you turn away and risk losing everything." Jason closed his eyes. He wanted to run, to escape, but deep down, he knew there was nowhere to go, no place left for him to hide. He had already crossed the threshold. He was in this, whether he liked it or not. "But I didn't choose this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want this. I just wanted to go home." The eldest woman's voice softened. "It is not about wanting, Jason. It's about what the universe has already decided. But that does not mean you are helpless. You have power to influence how this bond shapes you, power to decide what you become, who you become." Jason's head throbbed. He wanted to scream, to shout out at the universe for bringing him to this point, for trapping him in this impossible situation. But there was something else, something he hadn't been able to shake since the first moment the bond had been made. A feeling that was growing stronger within him, a feeling of connection that he couldn't explain, but that he couldn't ignore either. As he sat there, the weight of his emotions pressing on him from all sides, he realized something. He didn't have to accept everything they wanted. He didn't have to bend to their will, but he also didn't have to fight them. The key to his choice wasn't in fighting. It wasn't in resisting. It was in finding a way to balance the forces at play, to use the bond not as a chain, but as a bridge, a way to move forward, not as a pawn, but as an equal. "I can't change what's happened," Jason said, his voice steady now. "But I can choose how I live with it. I can choose how I embrace this bond. I can choose to shape it." The eldest woman smiled, and for the first time, Jason saw something akin to pride in her eyes. "That is the wisdom you needed to find. Jason, you have chosen to embrace the truth of who you are and who we are. Together we will move forward, and together we will find a way to evolve, to survive." Jason stood up, the weight of the ring no longer feeling like a burden, but like a tool, a key that unlocked something within him. Something powerful. He looked at the three women before him, the eldest, the middle, and the youngest. They weren't enemies. They weren't forces to be resisted. They were part of his future, his journey, and the bond between them. It wasn't a prison, it was a link, a connection. Jason took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace that he hadn't expected. The choice he had made was not one of submission, but of understanding, of connection. He wasn't just part of their future, he was part of something greater, something more. As he looked into the eyes of the women, he understood there was still so much to learn, so much to discover. But now, he wasn't afraid of the unknown. "I'm ready," Jason said, his voice calm and clear. "Let's move forward." And in that moment, Jason realized that the journey he had begun was just the beginning. There was no more fear, no more resistance, only the next step into a future he would help shape. The end.